Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting for the City of Lakeport for June 17th. I think we'll start with a roll call, please.
Councilmember Matina. Here. Councilmember Parlett.
Here.
Councilmember Price.
Here.
Pro Tem Disney.
Here.
And Mayor Costa.
Here. So this evening, we actually have a moment of silence that we would like to observe now. And this is for a former council member, Mark Dye. I have some information that I want to share with the people in the room and the public at large. Before we begin this evening's meeting, I'd like to take a moment to honor the life and service of former council member John Dye, who passed away recently. John served 3 full terms on the Lakeport City Council from 1980 to 1992, including 2 terms as mayor. His tenure marked a pivotal era of growth and civic pride, from the transformation of our city hall and the renovation of Library Park to infrastructure improvements and thoughtful, steady leadership on policy and planning matters. I personally was not fortunate enough to have known John Dye, but I am told that he was known for his calm, measured decision-making and dedication to public service, that he valued long-term impact and balanced leadership. Clearly, John Dye was a human being to admire and a leader to emulate. John's name is etched on a plaque at City Hall, but his impact runs much deeper in the parks we enjoy, the streets we travel, and the community we call home. So please join me in a moment of silence as we remember John Dye and give thanks for his service to the city of Lakeport. Thank you. So next up, we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a guest with us tonight, Jason Amino. Close? All right, come on up to the podium and please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up, we have the acceptance of the agenda and checking to see, do we have any urgency items?
We do not have any urgency items, but one change to the agenda.
Okay.
That was, we will be removing item 7A. There was some scheduling confusion, so we'll bring that back at a future date. That's the Sonoma Clean Power Feasibility Study.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept the agenda without item 7A.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you.
You want this one?
Thanks, Brett. You know, they're all the minutes. Picked up from the back. All I found is minutes.
Do you want to,
I've got the agenda here. I'm sorry.
Oh,
it took a
okay.
minute, but all I grabbed was.
oh, that's the old one.
Yeah. So,
Glad you said that.
all right. So we're on
tonight's
to the
agenda?
consent. We're on to the.
You got it?
consent
Okay.
agenda. Yeah. Thank you so much. For your patience. And the following consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the council at one time without any discussion. Any council member may request that any item be removed from the consent agenda for discussion under the regular agenda. Removed items will be considered following the consent calendar portion of this agenda. I will read the items out. A, ordinances, waive reading except by title of any ordinances under consideration at this meeting for either introduction or passage per Government Code Section 36934. B, approve the minutes of the City Council regular meeting of June 3rd, 2025. C, approve application 2025-032 with staff recommendations for the Safe RX Overdose Awareness Day event. D, approve application 2025-033 with staff recommendations for the Sponsoring Survivorship Fun Walk Run. E, approve application 2025-034 with staff recommendations for Rotary Time Capsule Celebration. F, annual military equipment policy report. Accept the annual military equipment report and renew the original ordinance, City of Lakeport Ordinance Number 933 from 2022, based on the findings required by Government Code Section 7071, Subdivision D. G, authorize the cancellation of the regular City Council meeting of July 1, 2025. H, it's the second reading of an ordinance to designate fire hazard severity zones. Adopt an ordinance designating fire hazard severity zones as recommended by the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection within the local responsibility area of the City of Lakeport. And would any council member wish to pull any of those items? Okay, does any member of the public have a comment on any of those items?
Madam Mayor, if I may, the minutes of, what is it, June 3rd? The minutes will need to be amended to reflect the absence of the mayor at that meeting. Well, we caught it in a few places. We got carried away and just counted you as there. So,
And I felt included. It was really nice, but I was accomplishing a lot right then. Thank you. All right, then. So looks like nobody wants to pull any of the consent agenda items. Can I get a motion?
Can we,
Oh, I'm sorry.
did we ask for virtual comment?
I'm sorry. Is there any hands online raised?
No hands raised online.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I haven't been here for months, so I welcome all the prompts. Thank you. All right, so if there's no comment from the public, we're ready for a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda with the changes to the minutes.
Second.
So motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries. All right, so at this time we really we appreciate everybody who shows up in person as well as online. There's times throughout the meeting when you have opportunity to share your thoughts and your concerns, your views. We really appreciate hearing from you. And at this time, it's the public presentation, public input for items that are not listed on tonight's agenda. And so any person may speak briefly about any subject within the authority of the City Council, provided that the subject is not already on tonight's agenda. Per Government Code 54954.3A, the City Council cannot take action or express a consensus of approval or disapproval on any public comments regarding matters which do not appear on the printed agenda. That said, we would love to hear from you. Is there anybody in the room that would like to come up and speak?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Tarmino, and I'm your local government affairs person from PG&E. This time of year, I like to go around to all of my towns and counties and just introduce myself so that you all can put the face with the name and the emails and just make some connections. And I came to do that and just tell you two things. One, in the utility world, I'm what's known as a single point of contact, which means that you all and staff have somebody to call who can then find the right person in this big company for you to talk to. So sometimes I have the answers, sometimes I don't, but my job is to get you to the right person. And then the other thing that I have been sharing You're my ninth stop on this tour, is about PG&E's greenhouse gas emissions. So since 2022, we've been at least 95% greenhouse gas free, which is like on a global scale, pretty amazing. And we do that for our customers, not CCA customers, but PG&E customers. 50% of all of our electricity comes from the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. So that's greenhouse gas free. And then it's solar, wind, hydro, there's some geothermal, some biomass. But importantly, we have our own battery storage system, which is about 2,100 megawatts. We've got about 1,600 megawatts under construction. And then we contract with about 3,500 more megawatts, which allows us to collect the solar and the wind during the day and use that when people come home at the end of the day and turn on their air conditioning, which is why we're so greenhouse gas free. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much. And if you all do want to talk with me on the phone, send me emails or get together in person, that's my job. Happy to do so. I enjoy it.
Can we have your number?
Yes.
We have it in like 1,000 emails. Thank you for that.
She says with joy in her voice. But you know what? I also have cards. So I'll give cards to the clerk and then she can give those to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. We appreciate you making the trip and coming to say hello to us.
Beautiful day to be here.
Right?
Awesome.
Great, thank you. Anyone else in the room want to share?
I'm glad Jason's here. PG&E is just killing the small business person in this community. I know small business people who I love and who are community builders all over. And the monopoly of PG&E needs to be dealt with. And they can't say it. I know that's, but I can say that. So please, Jason, get that word back to PG&E. You're killing the small business in this town. Thanks. And actually in this whole region.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments, items to share from people in the room tonight? All right, how about people online, Mel?
No hands raised online.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're on to council business, and item 7A was removed. So we're on to item 7B, Public Works Director, the Active Transportation Plan. Adopt the proposed resolution approving the City of Lakeport Active Transportation Plan. That's the request in front of the council. So Ron Ladd?
Thank you, Mayor Costa and council. I'm happy to be bringing the draft of the Active Transportation Plan to council for adoption. This has been a project that we've worked on for a long time. I started on the grant application for this when Doug Greider was still here for this project. And it came from, as we were wrapping up the Hartley Street Safe Route to School project, we were working on a RSTIP grant to kind of complete the loop of the Safe Route to School. And as we worked with APC on that project, we learned that it's a very competitive grant fund. And as we had some of the folks at APC review it, it was the consensus that our public outreach was a little bit stale on that. And they didn't feel like it would be competitive in that particular cycle. You know, even though we have recent studies on the 11th Street corridor and the regional transportation plan, the focus and the weight of the scoring on a lot of the funding opportunities that become available, you know, really shifted to good, fresh, robust community input to be competitive. And we also wanted to look at a larger project, even connecting regionally into the county to really benefit the most people we could in the area. And so the administrative requirements on this planning grant were large, and we're a very small group. And so we sought out and found CivicWell, a nonprofit organization that pairs with small jurisdictions to help shoulder some of the administrative burden of some of these funding opportunities that come up that would just overwhelm our staff. And so we started working with Civic Well. We developed an RFP and ultimately selected Nelson Nygaard and Blue Zones to develop the plan. And I did provide a detailed staff report. I won't read that word for word. There's a lot of details in here. I have Dan Burden on virtually, who is going to kind of give a quick overview of the plan and some of the priority projects and what the options are. This plan really does present a lot of different options that were driven, like I mentioned earlier, driven by community input. And I think we have a really good plan to use as the nexus moving forward, not only to address some of the community concerns, but to also leverage the competitive funds that are out there. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan.
And I hope everyone can hear me. This is Dan. Am I correct? People can hear me?
Hi, Dan.
Oh, good. It's a delight to be able to report out. And first of all, I want to congratulate the staff, wonderful folks to work with, and then everyone who came and took part. We had a robust team. Again, Nelson Nygaard, one of the best active transportation planning firms, our Blue Zone staff, and then, of course, to work with Josh Meyer, a delight. We want to, in a short period of time, talk about why this is such an important document and a few parameters. First of all, it's a living document. It's flexible, but it is well-rooted. And we were able to get a lot of great local input. The plan is only meant to be a starting point, and it is a roadmap with helpful rules and guidance along the way. In our process, we are able to evaluate, identify, and engage. This has been a really great project. And we also are able to now prioritize those areas that need the most support for supporting walking and bicycling, and just in general, how to improve each neighborhood. This is a story that's being written, of course. You've already made some great strides, but many other tools yet to be provided. And we are going to provide you in the report a prioritized list of local walkways so you can, as funds become available, put in those crossings, those sidewalks, and those other treatments that are going to matter the most. We also worked with a heat map, which shows where most people are trying to get to and where we've got to put some added energies. This helped us plan out the route. Quickly identify the why. We were delighted that we got so much input from everyone, including the council. And I think the point being, as a nation, we've overlooked the ability for people to do the most basic things: walk, bike, live in their neighborhood, use their streets for many activities. We did this through a number of activities. We had spring visits and a lot of analysis of each of your streets. We held focus groups with many folks in the community. Delightful input. We put together a workshop we call a charrette, and got people to really pour out their thoughts, their ideas at work tables. And then we did open houses to bring in additional information. We actually did Cinco de Mayo twice, 2 different years. And then with the ability to do community surveys, we read through all kinds of existing documents, so we made sure we're being relevant to honor all the work that's been done up until now. We also based everything on principles. The whole dialogue or vocabulary today is we want to complete our streets, have the streets be for every use, every individual. And number one is to get the speeds down to survivable levels. And it's amazing how important this is. We can start with school zones and then expand in one neighborhood at a time. And to give an idea of how this is done, I think anyone can look at this and assess that the speeds are going to be pretty high. There's nothing to constrain the speeds. But if you added elements such as color, actual parking, landscaping, then terminate the vista. All these things are cumulative. And when you finally get the buildings oriented to the street right, we can guarantee the speeds are going to be as safe as that members of the community really want. We also laid out a series of tools. I'll start with lane widths. Your lanes are overly wide on almost every street. And the safest cities in the world now are making sure they don't make the streets overly wide. That's good news. You can reapply that width for other uses. And indeed, on many cases, when you take out not on non-essential width, you end up with actually higher performance for cars because the crossing times are less for pedestrians. Sidewalks, very briefly, many of your sidewalks are currently, well, first of all, missing, but others are too narrow. And so just to show how important it is when we have the right of way to be able to get in the buffer. Bicycling, I'm just going to use this image to show a before condition and then an after condition. So you get a feeling for, on the left, a multi-use trail, on the right, the ability to reclaim appropriate road space, and then again, the use of color. And then bike lanes themselves. Again, this is a matter of using good identification concrete. They extended the curb gutter to make the road feel a little tighter. This is in my own town. It's something we're going to recommend on Lakeshore. It's a marvelous treatment. You have a separate walking location and then two directions of travel and then a low-speed road. I just got data today. This road's now operating at a very safe speed. It was in the 40s, and now people are driving in the mid-20s, and many people, myself included, are going more like 20 miles an hour. There are some streets that we can introduce greenways, and explaining that it's like a freeway for bicyclists. Motors can't go long distances, but they have access to every single property. We're going to be able to apply kinetics where it's really important at intersections where these are the most dangerous locations in anyone's town. But when we do something like a mini circle or a roundabout, the kinetics, take a look at what it now looks like. I'll go back. This is the energy that is compounded in an intersection. And with a mini circle or a roundabout, it becomes very survivable. One of my favorite early projects is this one in Albert Lee, Minnesota. Notice the road out in front has more lanes than it needs. And so we put together a proposal. The Minnesota DOT that originally just wanted to pave and go finally agreed that it was better to make a safer road. Crashes came down 73%. The crossings, again, I'm going to use my own town, Port Townsend, Washington, as an example. Median noses, high visibility striping. You're already doing many of these things, and create low speed entries to the roads. And again, bringing down crashes. On that same road, it's called Discovery. We're doing raised crossings, and notice how much safer it is. Most people only cross a raised crossing at 15 or 20. And we're also going to introduce one of the lowest priced treatments, an edge lane road. It's virtually free. It's just a matter of reapplying paint in a different way. You have two-way traffic, and then people can walk and they can bike. There are areas where it'll be a long time before you can afford the sidewalks, but you'll already have a good way for people to travel. Now let me get into the actual recommendations. We have general things like you should always try for 6 feet wide for sidewalks in neighborhoods, school areas, and so on. And these maps show where we're making the recommendations, where the greatest emissions are. Same with bike ways. They can be bike lanes, protected bike lanes, and or other treatments that are in the map. And then neighborhood greenways. These can help slow the traffic down in neighborhoods and make them much safer and give everyone still total access to their neighborhood. So here are the actual proposed solutions. I'm going to start with one of the greater opportunities, Lakeshore Boulevard. And everyone in this room is going to know what it looks like already. But our proposal is on the lake side to do a multi-use pathway, both directions, a buffer, and then bring the drive lanes down to 10 feet. And then the sidewalks you see on the left, along with a buffer. So all the tools we just talked about being applied. And now I want to show that in your cross sections in the report, you're going to see more solutions than I'm showing, but I wanted to, on Main Street at least, show a number of the options. So one option would be to colorize the center turn lane, bring your travel lanes down to a speed where you're not going to have the higher end speeds. And then you have a choice. You can get more parking in. In this case, you could do angled parking on one side, keep parallel on the other. That'll work out mathematically. So one option. A second option would be, again, to colorize the turn lane, narrow it down along with the two lanes, and now you have space for a buffer to the parking. This would not be a bike lane. It's just not enough width to do that, but it's amazing how much safer it is to park and unpark. And again, you can see how option 2 might be applied. This shows you an example of the colorized turn lane. And another option would be to keep the turn lane, narrow it down a little bit. And you can also now get in bike lanes and a buffer to the parked cars and add more landscaping to the street, as you see here. This is an example of a street that was appropriately narrowed. You can see the before and the after. Another tool that you could apply on certainly one side of the street, if you do angled, would be back end angled. You still have blocks where people could park head in, but this gives you a choice. Now getting to some of the other areas, in this case, further down on Main Street, we're recommending bike lanes and buffers both to the parking and to the moving travel lane, and now a raised median, as you see shown here. Lakeport Boulevard, again, another opportunity. And again, all these tools were ones we just discussed, but this would make for much safer streets, much better operations. 10th Street you're already working on, but there's some still awaiting opportunities. It's still a tough street to walk and bike. So this could become a first edge lane road and then give plenty of width for a buffer for the to the parking and then places for walking and biking where you don't have walkways built yet. There are different ways to do an edge lane road. This is just an example on the left, or you could do the ones on the right. Notice they've colorized the walking and biking space. 11th Street, you've already done other studies on. You have two different sections. The commercial section, we're recommending again a raised median and then travel lanes, buffer, bike lanes, and then sidewalks on both sides. In the residential section, a little tougher. You've got a lot of drainage issues that you have to deal with. You have a tight right of way. And what we're recommending is something more like this. You keep the two travel lanes. Now you provide bike lanes and sidewalks in this residential section. North High Street, again, overly wide. You have rewarded the turn lanes and so on. There are many other options you have. We do recommend a raised median and narrow down the travel lanes a bit. And now you have a buffer. You can have a wonderful bike lanes, which create a further buffer to the sidewalk. So there are many benefits to the addition of bike lanes, and also would help bring down speeds. Notice here again on Forbes Street, 2 10-foot lanes and the buffers, and then the bike lanes on each side, and now parking, and rotate every other block on the parking. And Martin Street, another great opportunity. Here we can get in the bike lanes and a buffer to the travel lanes, and now get it in sidewalks. This all fits within the right of way. Armstrong, another opportunity for doing an edge laned road. And their sections are just going to be really tough to get money for sidewalks right away. So this is a much better way to slow down traffic. We would do certain treatments at intersections as well. Hartley Street, we are showing a couple of really good options here. And again, we're working within the constraints of your right of way. This is an edge lane road that helps express how they work in my town of Port Townsend, small town, 10,000 population. We already have 7. And the crashes have come down, the speeds have come down, and the walking has gone up. So thank you for this opportunity. The team really had a great opportunity to learn from you and to apply where we feel you're ready to move toward. And a special thanks to Ron and the whole staff for making this work. And we're available. Josh is on the line as well. We're available to answer any questions you have. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. Did you have more, Ron, or are we? Is it back
Well,
to
I
council?
would just like to add that, you know, the good thing that, one of the good things that I've taken from this plan is that a lot of these options can be built incrementally. There's things involved in this plan that wouldn't take a huge capital improvement project. For example, the colorizing of some of the turn lanes, the edge line roads on 10th Street and Armstrong Street that would also kind of decouple the bike and ped traffic off of the busier 11th Street and Martin Street. And I mean, I would also point out that on some of these where it appears that we have the right of way, there are significant capital projects that would have to be completed with our storm drainage system in order to utilize the right of way that we own for some of these improvements. And also, you know, there would be significant maintenance concerns with the additional raised medians and landscaping, but we need to start addressing these one little piece at a time and making improvements. And some of these we felt paralyzed because it's so overwhelming to envision the entire capital improvement project all at once, that perhaps we've overlooked some of the simpler items that can be accomplished quickly. And I know that we have a lot of current infrastructure improvements going on right now with South Main Street. And these had been in design, you know, long before the active transportation plan started. But we have continued to get input during the active transportation plan and other council meetings, and we're applying some of the suggestions that we've received through this process on South Main to adjusting the stop bars back on the side streets that don't have crosswalks, to open up the path of travel there and make it a little more safer to cross those side streets. There were also some great suggestions on how we could have improved the striping at the intersection of Green and Lakeshore that we've added on as a change order to the South Main Street project to address those good suggestions that were given at council. And so I feel like we're headed in the right direction. I don't want people to be confused that we have a lot of projects right now that are in process, and it may appear that, oh, we had this plan and we're not incorporating these, and we've gone to great length to make adjustments where they won't necessarily be installed at the completion of the current projects that we already had in the works, but the adjustments we made, we feel like we'll be able to accept some of these incremental improvements without, you know, great investment and changes to what we just built. And so we've really put a lot of effort in trying to make sure the designs would accept some of the incremental changes. And with that, I mean, I know I'm open for questions, and Dan and yes, Josh is online. I'm not sure. And who else?
There's Greg.
Greg Damron's from Bluestone. Steve definitely assisted in a lot of the public outreach, but yeah, we're here to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. So we'll bring it to council for questions.
I have a quick question. Great report. This is going to be really helpful, but my question, recently completed projects, maybe it's not recent anymore. I was thinking the Hartley Safe Routes to School project, was it just overlooked, or is it too old, or it didn't make the list?
Well, I think it did make the list. Dan brought that up on the PowerPoint on some additional improvements that
Okay.
could be made to Hartley. And really that whole route to school, the whole section was the catalyst to begin this whole plan, was to really tighten up the safety on the safe routes to school.
Cool. Very cool.
I've got just a couple questions. First is coming up later in the agenda, we're talking about the budget, and all of these plans are great, but obviously they're not easily attainable. My question is some of the simple items that are not as cost prohibitive are like the edge lane roads. Can you just explain, because it looks like we get rid of the center lane and just put in 2 dotted lines instead, and the traffic shares the road? Can you just explain the edge lane road a little bit?
Do you want to expand on that a little
Sure,
bit?
I'm happy to do that. The Edge Lane Road, we typically, it remains a two-way operation. And we narrow down the space that is physically needed for the car. Some communities go down to 11 feet, others clear down to 9 feet. And that works, and it works beautifully. And then the skip dash, which gives permission to a motorist to go over that at any time. And they can do that anytime there's not a bicyclist or a pedestrian present. It's so cheap because all it is paint. And again, it brings down the speeds, which almost any resident is looking for. And it will apply to many of your local streets. So we only recommended it on 2 just because we only covered so many streets, but there are so many other streets where it would work equally as well.
Okay,
Does that help?
perfect. Yeah. That explains it really well. Because I was envisioning doing something like that on a heavier traffic road, which just wouldn't make any sense. So some of the local roads is where it would, right?
That is correct. They can work clear on up to 4,000 cars a day. You have a lot of roads that are very moderate volumes, but we'd want to start on your local streets. And if there's say a collector category road where it would apply, then we can look at it later down the road, but we really want to get a few on your local streets first.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. My other seemingly simple fix is speed signs. Dan's presentation started out with just lowering speeds. I mean, obviously there's traffic calming measures that are a little more in depth to implement. Is it possible just to change out a bunch of signs and redo some striping relatively quick and easy, or is there a more detailed plan and outreach that needs to go into something like that?
For local streets, we would recommend, which we are making this recommendation in many communities, you really shouldn't be posting your speeds at higher levels. 20 miles an hour is plenty, certainly in all school zones and so on. But when you go to the collector category or arterials, your speeds are posted a little high. We would recommend reposting as appropriate for the nature of the street. But longer term, you need to have the road feel like you should only be going whatever the speed you're posting. Motorists will tend to drive what you told them visually they should be going, and often it's way too fast. So, yeah. So that's why we recommend landscaping, colorizing, and narrowing down the travel lanes. All those things will help you get the speeds down to where they really should be.
I'm going to jump in because it's a follow-up question to yours, Brandon. The question you just asked was almost verbatim what I asked Kevin, the city manager, a little while back. And he had an interesting answer, which I found frustrating, not because of what you said, Kevin, but because of what you described as the mandates and guidelines that we have to adhere to. And I said basically that let's just change the speeds. And in a second, when I stop talking, I'd love for you to like explain that a little bit, what you understand were the constraints that we're under. And so then I really like this idea that regardless of the posted speed, when we have the ability to change what the road looks like, people will more naturally drive the speed that we think to be safe. But let me just turn that over to you to elaborate, please.
Yeah, I'll start. And I mean, Ron and Dan can certainly probably speak to this at a greater intellectual level than I can. But I mean, there are some limitations in regards to just lowering the posted sign. The state of California generally uses what they call the 85th percentile rule. They have made some recent changes, to that have given us a few more tools back in regards to, in regards to controlling those speeds. And I'm sure Dan can probably go into a little bit more detail on what those are. But it's based off of speed studies that we do, I think, every 5 years in partnership with Lake APC. Is that roughly in that neighborhood area there, where they will put the speed test down and they will kind of measure what the 85th percentile speed is. And this goes back to Dan's piece that people usually use a speed of what they visually feel that road should be rather necessarily than what's actually posted at. And then we are limited within the confines of the law in regards to the minimum speeds that we can post on that. So say the 85th percentile comes out at 37 miles per hour. I think we have some flexibility that we could go down to as low as 30, but we would not be able to post that one at 25 or 20.
So you're saying the test, if I understand you right, the test is that we sit there and we just see how fast people do drive, and 85% of them drive at, in your example, 37 miles per hour. And so that then dictates how low we can post the sign.
Correct.
That's an interesting logic, and
Not mine,
We
by the way.
went through that on 20th Street.
We went through
after
that.
We
Street, quite-
repaved
yeah.
20th Street, and what was it, like 40 miles an hour?
Well, the
And
interesting thing was the people there wanted it lowered, and when they went out and tested it, the locals were actually going faster than what they
it was all the
requested.
neighbors that were
Yeah,
speeding.
and it turned out that what they tried to do was use lines to narrow
We
it.
narrowed it. and
Get
made
the
it push
perception
back.
that it was narrower, and this is an ongoing problem. And just because you want to lower it to make it safer, it isn't going to happen, because it's all about how safe it appears, as he said, that they built this for us to go. And that's what we have on Highway 20 through Lucerne. They fly through there because it's so wide.
And I mean, Dan can elaborate. There are some additional tools, I believe, that we didn't have a few years ago in regards to that lowering. I'm not sure, Dan, if you want to hit those.
Sure, and I'll start with the lane width. We are getting more and more research that shows that when we build 12-foot lanes or even 14-foot, or Caltrans has often gone to roads as wide as 18 or even 20 feet for outer lanes. And all those will pick up the speed the average motorist feels they should be going. So by going down to 10-foot lanes, all it is moving your paint. Then we're seeing a reduction in speeds on average, and a reduction in crashes. So all that is science that's been well developed over the last decade. And some good news on the 85th percentile rule is nationwide, that rule is being set aside. It was doing far more harm than good, but you still need to stay within certain constraints. So if your road says to go 50 and people are doing 60, you've got to start working with how the road feels first. And that's where gateways into your town, controls at intersections that keep traffic moving, but at a lower speed, like roundabouts, which you been able to look at. All these treatments are really promising a great future. Our general recommendation is make those visual changes concurrent with lowering your speeds. And again, there's so many things now we know to do visually, and that's all in the report. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was a long roundabout answer, but it does make sense. And I knew from my time on the council that nothing's as simple as, oh yeah, let's swap that 30-mile-an-hour sign for a 20.
What the heck?
You just, nothing's as easy as that. But yeah, thank you for the answer.
Did you have any more questions, Brandon?
Not at this
Okay.
time.
Other council members? Questions?
It's not really a question. No, I don't have any questions. How do we start piecing through and prioritizing what we want to look at as a council, and how do we direct staff on what is important to us? Is that up for discussion right now, or we're just gonna take a whole big pile of lists of roads and like, do we have a priority or like a way that we are going to prioritize the 10 or 15 roads that he had mentioned?
I think you're saying, what are the next steps here? to Get
Yes.
traction on this. Yeah.
I went to the
Back to
meeting
Rob.
back in 2024. I got really excited, and then I went to the meeting a year later and got really, really excited. And now that this presentation is here, I'm just kind of wanting
This
to-
gives us the framework. It's like having the full plan out
Right.
there. And then as things come up, like Ron working, in South Main Street, incorporating those things slowly
Mhm.
and adding bigger ones as we can. So I don't know that you necessarily,
Yeah, I mean, that probably after we take public comment, we can get into, if there are some projects that council feels are of higher value than others, I think it's worth noting. But kind of going on what Councilmember Martinez is saying too, I mean, I think there's the dual purpose that we've done pretty well on is, one is taking these studies and then turning them into larger grant pieces. I mean, as Ron noted, that was the catalyst that got us here in the first place, was looking at that kind of second piece to the Hartley Safe Routes to School, expanding that to include Lakeshore and connecting back up. That was the catalyst piece of it. But one of the really neat benefits that's come out of this now is, we realize our general fund budget does not carry a lot of capacity for a bunch of large projects. So having the incremental outlook at our disposal to be able to take little pieces of them, add them in here and there, and build to those bigger items is a piece. And so, I mean, I think, yeah, certainly we want to hear from council in regards to what areas. I mean, I think, do we want to be exploring edge line roads? What do we want to be looking at? I mean, I think those are all part of the wider piece. But yeah, I mean, I think that probably discussion we can enter into a little bit after we take public comment too.
Right. And so there was a question, but it does put us right on the threshold of discussion, which it will be good and robust. So we'll go ahead and hold that till then.
Got it.
Any other questions specifically from council? So I have one sort of clarifying question about the edge lane roads. They kind of seemed spooky to me, but as I'm starting to get the picture about how it turns into, the science shows that it actually serves to get people driving more safely and slowly, et cetera. It brings down crashes. It looked like it could be a little chaotic at first. What I hear you saying is that isn't really what the data is showing. So that's a question in the form of a statement. Did I get that right? The data is showing that the crashes come down. And then I'm wondering, is there like a community learning curve on that? And what's the safe way that is noted as to how that type of road is introduced into a community?
First of all, yes, the speeds come down. In some cases, as much as 7 miles per hour. The crashes come down. Our town of Port Townsend only has 10,000 people, and we're already up to 7 edge lane roads. And all of them worked really well. One didn't really bring the speeds down as much as we want, because there were other factors that were going there. So our recommendation is pick 1 or 2 of the best streets where you're going to get results. It's includes a public relations measure, some signing, and really letting residents help pick that as a tool, because the people who live on the street are going to well, have the benefits, but they're also going to not have the whole road which they've had in the past for their ordinary operations, even though the road is still completely available to them. Does that answer your question? It's a,
It does, thank you.
okay, yeah. We got all 7 of ours on the ground within about 6 months. We waited about 2 months for the first one to be adopted and accepted. But then the others just started to come incrementally and again, very low priced.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, if there are no more questions from council, then we will open it up for public comment. Anyone in the room want to come up and share a thought or a question? Righty, any hands raised online, Mel?
No hands, or we have Greg. And Greg, you're unmuted, so you may speak.
Hi, Greg Dameron from Blue Zones Project, Lake County. Thank you for your vision. Dan covered a lot today, and the plan has a lot in it. I wanted to emphasize something that is not necessarily just resident centric, but business centric. And I was, I enjoy the parks on the lakefront. And your resort town is spectacular. And I was actually saying to a colleague last week, there should be more weddings in the park. Like this is just, it's just the view, it's epic, et cetera, et cetera. And I know in participating in some of the community input processes, business values, some of the city's in-depth analysis of business traffic, foot traffic, and use of businesses. So I just want to emphasize really the profitability, the monetize this aspect. Yes, we care about pedestrian safety and general resident safety and all of that, but there's just this great opportunity to improve the business economy. We had a local stakeholder make a comment about PG&E earlier today, and traffic and high speeds. I have been on Lakeport streets when you're that teenager in the monster truck goes roaring by, and it's how are we going to curb testosterone or whatever that is, and it's through this effort of changing the structures and doing these enhancements. And so we really celebrate, and we're here to help over the long haul. And thanks again for your innovation and forward visioning.
Great, thank you. Any more hands raised, Mel?
No other hands raised.
All right, we'll bring it back to council for a further discussion. I think a thought I have is that I am hoping that as we do begin to wrestle with how do we want this to roll out, specifically try to tag some of these great ideas and find out how they intersect with current and not too much in the future projects and which ones we want to sort of put our focus on that. I just really hope we can try to, I know we will try to outreach to residents and to business owners because their input would just be so valuable. And I know this has been, in general, the topic that has come up a lot, that people have talked about, what about the sidewalks? What about the parking? What about this and that? And so this is one area, this active transportation plan, in which a lot of those concerns and ideas can be brought in. So I'm looking forward to the city making really sincere and robust efforts to involve the public in the decision making. And I know we have been, and I'd like to continue that. And I hope that that will be part of how we begin to identify what seems to be most desired and the things that we want to give a try to, in addition to the professional understanding that we have from you know, the public works director and all the professionals are here to tell us about the laws and all the stuff that is hanging over our heads. So, Kevin, are you busting out? You want
No,
to say something here?
Yeah, we're buzzkill on some of those things, yes.
Okay.
The last comment I would make is, I heard gentlemen say that, you know, the lines are cheap to put in, and I'm thinking, you know, with our budget, I don't care how cheap it is, we need to look hard at everything we do, and just bringing in some lines, I don't think we even have that kind of equipment, and we'd have to contract it out. And so I think cheap is a very relative term based on anybody's budget and what it would take to do that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that Public Works and everybody's gonna be looking at this very hard, and we're gonna integrate the ones that we can as we can with the money that we have and hope for grants. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I first want to just thank Dan, thank Don, Ron, and everyone for this plan, because like I said, with our couple years on the council experience now, is that you can't do anything unless you have the public outreach to back it up, especially when it comes to grants. And our budget is we don't need cheap, we need free, and through grants. So going back to Councilmember Price's point about what do we prioritize moving forward, in my mind, the one that stands out is doing some of the ELR, the Edge Lane Road on 10th Street, because that is kind of where we're heading as far as piecing these little pieces together. 10th Street and getting people off of 11th Street seems to accomplish a couple things at once and continue to get that pedestrian improvement to the Safeway Shopping Center as effectively as possible. So that's what I would say. The rest of it will have to rely on grants.
I would say the plan is awesome. We're so lucky to have it because it puts us in a position where whatever opportunity comes up, we can grab it. If we didn't have the plan, we would have nothing. And this did take in a ton of community input. So we're in great shape. Thank you for working so hard on this.
Councilmember Price. Okay, so that was interesting. So we kind of went, you know, broadly, how would we go? And then Council Pro Tem Disney was like, here's how we do it. Let's just do 10th Street. So I guess I'm wondering, do we want to make decisions about like the plan to make the next conversation in the plan, or how do you see that then city staff doing that?
Any input's valuable. I mean, it's always good to hear where council feels some of the priority pieces are to build on this. I mean, I think, from a staff point of view, I think that the two biggest takeaways we have reiterating once again is this does put us in a really good position to go after future active transportation planning grant cycles. It does provide us with some really good insight to add other pedestrian elements in it. I mean, one key piece that I really keyed in on at early stages is we know that we have lots of missing gaps of sidewalk, but being able to go after filling what gap gives us the greatest bang for our buck is a huge piece. And so I see that as being a really good element to this project as well. If there's a small section of sidewalk that we can fill, that now all of a sudden we have more than a quarter mile, half a mile of continuous sidewalk along a stretch. We've already started to utilize this piece to kind of look at what we're doing on 10th Street and doing the same thing on Armstrong Street to kind of relieve some of the kind of pedestrian and bicycle challenges that we have on Martin Street. So, I mean, I think hearing those, I think, hearing Councilmember Disney's piece there, I mean, I think those are all kind of, that input's important. And this isn't the only opportunity to do it, but I think that there is an opportunity. If there's something that really sticks out, go ahead and note it and we can.
Would it make sense to have a relatively brief report or offering from the city staff about this? These are the projects that seem to be the most attainable as beginning incremental things, the things that we could afford in this manner we could afford them. And here's some time frame, just like a few, so that we narrow it down, because we have the concept, we're going to do it incrementally. We're going to look for money to do the bigger pieces, but in terms of getting any further, pick this one over that one. Maybe if we had a few that seemed doable, we could be more specific. Especially if they're in competition with one another, right? We have 3 we could do, but we can't do them all.
Or if they're kind of the same, but different locations, but kind of the same remedy. Is that what you're saying?
Something, well, just,
Kind of.
they're all kind of attainable, but maybe not all at the same time. So there would be an opportunity for decision-making about it. Does the council think that would be helpful? Because it's just my idea. We don't have to go that way. Does city staff think?
I think any way to narrow it down, even to give them like a top 3 to focus on would be helpful. For what it's worth, my main concern would be Main Street, doing something on Main Street, giving it the attention, whether it's additional parking or landscaping, changing something on Main Street, because I feel like the speeds are high. And I know that the businesses are suffering with lack of foot traffic and parking.
I think that might be that at least, so we have 2 expressed, recognized areas of potential improvement. So it may be helpful to hear from city staff about specifically, this is really what we could do right now. And, we know the plan is the big picture, but if we could just maybe get something a little more tangible, does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's something that probably we could, build into our biannual, traffic study looks. You kind of talk about, a couple of those pieces in there. So, I mean, I think that's certainly, we don't want this thing to just sit on the shelf. We want to be, looking at ways to implement it.
And I think this report is going to be a huge asset for looking at other grants, whether it's the ARP Community Challenge grants or anything that we can do to get help and assistance with the striping, or, I know they all have their fun words, but, like the plastic.
Collapsible boulders.
Exactly, yeah. Collapsible bollards, for those of you who couldn't hear Ron. But this really is a vital piece, and we're going to put it to use, I think.
Okay, so it's probably just me. I'm still not clear exactly what's going to happen next. Or is city staff just
Well,
going to make those?
We do have a motion to approve the plan,
Right,
which I think is the first step. And then
right.
I would imagine that staff comes back with recommendations on implementing the plan.
Is that,
Correct.
have we agreed on that? Okay. Is that,
Well, the one thing that's obvious to me is that when Public Works goes out and looks at projects, they say, well, we got sewer problems over here, we got water problems over here, we can get financing from sewer and water, and then we only have to pay a certain percentage. And I think Ron looks at this very strategically, and wherever he's working, he said, well, he has this input. And I think that his guidance in coming to us with what he thinks would be the right thing at the right time, at the right price, would probably be best, rather than us throwing out stuff saying, well, we'd like to have this done on Lake Shore, and then there's all this, problem with drainage and so forth. So I think Ron is the guy that really can see the future better than we can, knowing where the new sewer, the new water, and they tear it up, and then we get to fix the street, and now we've got a 3-for right there. I think that's how he's been doing it recently, and I think that I trust his judgment to bring us back something that would fit into what we want to do incrementally, and I think I would put it in Ron's hands to bring us what he would consider the next phases, based on what his judgment is, based on what is going to be done, that needs to be done with the 3 entities to get the funding without grants. That's what I feel.
Absolutely agree.
it's all on you, Ron.
There are a lot of opportunities, and I can definitely present a report that would be open to feedback and adjustments from council.
That'd be great. I think we'd find that helpful. Thank you. We are here. We do have a motion for this item if we're through with discussion.
Madam Mayor, if there's nothing further, I'll move to adopt the proposed resolution approving the City of Lakeport Active Transportation Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.
you.
Thank you for all the work.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Great stuff.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, next up, Community Development Director Joey Henowitz. This is an item asking the council to adopt an authorizing resolution of the City of Lakeport authorizing application and adopting the PLHA plan for the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Costa and members of the City Council. This should be a really kind of quick and easy item for you tonight. This is kind of a general housekeeping item. The Permanent Local Housing Assistance Program, it's administered by the California Department of Housing and Community Development to provide financial assistance to local governments in addressing unmet housing needs. This came out from a recent SB 2, which essentially provided for real estate transactions in the state of California. You have to pay a $75 fee. That fee goes into this pot. This pot is what funds this program. It's on a competitive and non-competitive basis, also an entitlement and a non-entitlement basis. The city of Lakeport is a non-entitlement city because we don't have a population of 50,000 people. For a city, a county would need to have over 200,000 people to be an entitlement city, which means that you don't have to apply every year. You just essentially get that money each year sent to you. We do not have that. But with that, you also are required to develop a 5-year allocation plan. So for the money that you've been allocated based off of the allocation methodology is you are to put together a 5-year plan for that. The city of Lakeport has put together a 5-year plan. We decided to allocate all of our money towards putting forth a navigation feasibility study. And we would potentially consider maybe addressing some changes to our allocation in the future, potentially putting some money into a regional housing trust fund. But at the moment, we're really just asking you to approve this new resolution due to the fact that at the original time frame, HCD provided a 5-year estimate for the city of Lakeport at about $475,000. We did recently receive an email from HCD notifying the city of Lakeport that our actual allocation for the 5-year period has been revised upwards to about $501,000. And essentially, to remain eligible for future PLHA disbursements, the city must adopt and submit a new resolution reflecting this updated allocation. And so with that, we're asking for you guys to move to adopt the resolution of the City of Lakeport authorizing application and adopting the PLHA plan for the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program. And I'm available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Do any council members have questions?
No questions.
Okay, any comments from members of the public in the room? Don't see anybody online with their hands raised, Mel?
No hands raised online.
All right, so back for discussion or comments from council. I just want to say woohoo, it went up. Like, how often does that happen? Yay for us. And is there any other comment or discussion? All right.
If nothing further, I will make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the city of Lakeport application and adopting the PLHA plan for the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you, Joey.
All right, so the next item is the delinquent utilities from the finance director, Danielle, and it's my opportunity to have you school me on how to correctly say your last name.
It's Dizon.
Dizon, Danielle Dizon, finance director. The council is being asked to adopt the resolution to cause a written report to be prepared and filed with the city clerk regarding delinquent water, sewer, and solid waste user charges, fees, and penalties for the period of June 1, 2024 through May 31, 2025, and to set a public hearing on the written report prior to collection on the tax roll.
That's correct. So letters will be going out to account holders on or around June 30th to notify them of the delinquencies. They'll be given an opportunity to bring those accounts current to avoid inclusion on this list. Any unpaid accounts after that time will be sent to the auditor controller's office to be included on the tax roll as a direct charge. Currently, the delinquent accounts are estimated to be around $33,000.
And as we've seen as historical practice, when we give the public notice and stuff on these, and then bring it back, I think what's it scheduled
August 5th.
August 5th, that should dramatically reduce. But we generally do have, a few that we do have to move forward to
Delaying, right.
the, through the process.
Okay.
Any questions from council? Right, comments from the public? No one in the room, online, Mel?
No hands raised
Okay,
online.
very good, thank you. Bring it back for discussion. Comment? And if there is none, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution to cause a written report to be prepared and filed with the city clerk regarding delinquent water, sewer, and solid waste user charges, fees, and penalties for the period of June 1st, 2024 through May 31st, 2025, and setting a public hearing on the written report prior to collection on the tax roll.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, and here is the star of the show, all departments. I think it's going to be explained to us probably by the city manager, Kevin Ingram. It's our budget workshop. So we're going to receive the fiscal year 2025-26 budget workshop presentation and direct staff to incorporate council input in preparation for final budget adoption at the special meeting scheduled for June 30th, 2025, and receive a report on the position summary included in the proposed 2025-26 budget and provide directions to staff if needed.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and open, but really the star of this show is going to be Danielle Dazan. She's going to go through, but before I turn it over to her, I do want to give my compliments out. Danielle joined us, I think, on May 12th, which is a fantastic time to start. And when you're a finance director and are responsible for putting together a budget by the end of the fiscal, or in time for the beginning of the fiscal year. So my compliments to Danielle and her hard work. And all the department heads, also the assistance of our interim finance director as well. Andy Heath helped us get some stuff started in here. What you have tonight is kind of the big giant pieces of it. What you don't have, and you generally would have, would be the budget book. But I do assure you that all the main pieces are here. We'll get that budget book into your hands prior to the physical adoption of it. But it's really kind of a let's say an artful tactic of pulling the information out of our financial software into an Excel document and then into the physical budget book. But once again, my big compliments to Danielle for putting this together in a comprehensive fashion, working with the department heads under, as you'll see, some constrained pieces. But at the same time, I do feel like we've put together a really good proposal for council to consider that allows us to take the budget realities into account, while at the same time making sure that we continue to the good work that we've done on several of our ongoing projects, seeing those to fruition, and then also putting the at least the foundation in place for the next steps on a lot of these. But I'll go ahead and give it to Danielle.
Mel, do we have slides?
You could, if we put it, if we can put the packet up, we can get to them real quick, I think.
You want me to go to a specific URL?
If we just go to the city website on the council agenda on the agenda, and I think it starts at page 339. Minutes in agenda. Yeah, there we go. You got it. If it's the same as mine, I believe it starts at page 339. Sorry about that, Mel.
No, it's all good.
Bingo. Perfect.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the 2025-26 budget workshop. I was very proud to have this put together for you all in such a short time. Sort of joke that I was joining you all midstream. It was really more like jumping in at the rapids. So just dive right in. Looking at the agenda, we'll discuss the budget schedule, the budget document itself, the approach that's taken, some highlights, some key analysis points, and there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end. So looking at the budget schedule, typically this process begins in about February, with planning beginning in March, and the budget instructions being sent to all of those departments where they put together their requests that are evaluated in April. In May, we reconcile those requests and develop the city manager's budget message, as well as draft that budget document. Right around those 2 bullet points is when I joined the city, so you can see I had a little bit of catching up to do. Fast forward to June, we're here at the budget workshop. We'll be putting together any final revisions that are requested. We'll finalize that document, and then lastly, we'll adopt. I personally like to think of the budget as something a little bit more cyclical, since we know that our budgetary responsibilities don't really end when we adopt it. A budget is nothing more than a plan. Like any plan, it requires execution and follow-through. That follow-through on our level happens with continuous monitoring of revenues to ensure that they're being received as anticipated and adjusting our spending if needed. Given the timing of this particular budget, I do anticipate we may have a more robust mid-year review. So moving on to the document itself, it has several key elements to it, including the city manager's budget message, data presented in summary fashion, list of construction in progress projects that are happening. There's detail at the fund level, which we will be going over general fund, water, and sewer today. And the budget document itself includes all funds. It is also presented in department fashion and has several appendices at the end. So moving into the document, it's presented in a variety of ways. Primarily, you're going to see it sorted by major category. In the revenue section, it will be sorted by type. And those main types, of course, are our taxes, our charges for services, and grant funds. Moving to the expenditure side, those will be sorted out by their natural classification. And of course, those key items are the salaries and benefits, operations, our loans and grants activities, debt service, and capital outlay. In reading the document, you'll find revenue is listed by source and the expenditures by class, of course, as I mentioned. It will include actuals from the 2 prior fiscal years, which would be fiscal year 22-23 and 23-24. For 24-25, you'll see the adjusted budget and estimated actuals. Then you will find 25-26, you will have the department requests, the city manager recommended budget, and finally those final adopted figures once we've adopted those. The document will also include 2 years worth of projections. We can have a solid outlook for the future. Some sections of note would be the city manager's message, which begins the book on page 1, followed by a citywide summary on page 19, our general fund summary on page 20, our list of capital improvement programs listed on page 33, various charts and graphs beginning on page 38, and of course our trends and analysis, which begin on page 41. Lakeport has continued to take a collaborative approach to budget preparation, remaining focused on council priorities as well as both efficiency and effectiveness. The city has several projects in the works with many nearing completion, such as the pedestrian improvements on 10th Street, water main replacements, and several paving projects around the city. Some of the challenges we're currently facing are stagnating revenues as well as rising costs, which are due to a variety of factors, including inflation, cost of living, and an uncertain economic future. On a personal note, this was the first budget I compiled for the city, so not only was I starting a little late in the budget cycle, but having to simultaneously familiarize myself with city operations while compiling an operating budget was a challenge in itself.
She did great.
Moving back to our revenue discussion, we'll look at those a little bit more in depth. And this graphic was provided by Muni Services for the city's fourth quarter 2024 report of sales tax performances. We're, of course, continuing to experience some post-pandemic volatility. After 7 consecutive quarters of decline, quarter one of 2024 finally marked an increase of 6%, followed by a couple more tight quarters of decline. Then we experienced a large jump in quarter four of 18.7%, which aligns with Marshall's opening. Our last sales tax report showed 56.8% increase in sales tax from general retail when comparing fiscal year 23-24 to 24-25. So we really hope to see this trend continue. It's proving that our new additions of Marshalls and Tractor Supply are doing exactly what we've hoped. When making our budgetary determinations, council priority areas are among our first considerations. For example, in the 25-26 general fund budget, we were able to include $30,000 for community center operations and another $20,000 for recreation programs. The city has been fortunate to be able to continue providing services at a high level while continuing to honor these priority areas. Some of the key highlights when looking at the budget for the total city, we are expecting revenues around $31.9 million. $15 million of that revenue is expected to come from grants, including $11.9 million for affordable housing development, $1.2 million for some ADA improvements at the Silvera Community Center, and another $1.6 million for emergency repair and storm damages. In the expenditures, we are expecting about $37.5 million. And that could be broken down to our personnel at 7.2, operations at 7.7, of course, that large affordable housing development at 11.9, our debt service at 2.5, various CIP projects at around 7.2 million, and our other expenses at another $1 million. So taking a look at general fund, you can see our continued reliance on taxes, which is our primary revenue source at 83.09%, of which about 70% of those taxes come from sales tax. So just further demonstrating that continued reliance on having a strong sales tax in our region. Salaries and benefits, operations and debt service account for 95% of this year's costs, with another 5% going to those CIP projects in general fund. There's currently a deficit between the revenue that is estimated and the expenditures that have been planned for fiscal year 25-26 in the amount of $646,232. I know this amount can seem intimidating. However, this amount is fully supported by fund balance carry forward from prior years. If you turn your attention to the actual columns, you'll see that once all revenues were received and all expenditures were made, fiscal year 22-23 ended with a surplus of $208,047, and fiscal year 23-24 ended with a surplus of $458,452. And we anticipate carry forward from the current fiscal year as well. Those are most likely attributed to those projects that were previously budgeted and have continued to carry forward. We'll dive into that deficit a little further in the next slide. The final adjusted budget for fiscal year 24-25 was approved with a deficit of $286,868, but we're actually estimating that to end with a surplus of around $300,000. Adding that to the actual surplus from the last 2 fiscal years, making adjustments for those carryover projects, like I mentioned, and accounting for adjustments for one-time costs, such as that emergency repair storm damage funds, which required a general fund match of $180,000, and some miscellaneous equipment and technology replacements. You can see that general fund is actually structurally balanced. Moving on to the water fund. This fund has been completing some significant capital infrastructure improvements that were funded with bonds that were previously received in fiscal years, which is why you will see a continued appearance of a deficit. That's simply because the revenue is not being received in the same fiscal year that those expenditures are expected to be made in. Additionally, there is a rate study that's being planned to ensure that all costs associated with operations and necessary improvements are being properly captured. Looking at the breakdown of the deficit that's expected in the water maintenance and operations fund, you'll see that if we account for those projects that are carrying over from fiscal year 24-25, and including those bond projects, that is using revenue from prior fiscal years and that fund balance carry forward, you'll see that this fund is also structurally balanced. Taking a look at the sewer fund, again, this has some very large CIP projects that have been going on and carrying for several years. The current recommended deficit is expected to be fully covered by the fund balance carry forward from the current year. This fund has some significant reserves it can rely on over the next few years for a variety of CIP projects. So again, taking a look at the breakdown of that deficit and accounting for those 24-25 projects that are being carried forward, adding that into the anticipated deficit and factoring in that excess fund balance available, you'll see that this fund is also in balance. This is a list of the city's current CIP projects that are in motion. To note a few, there is a citywide fee schedule that is anticipated to take place to ensure that operational costs are being appropriately recuperated through the fees that are charged to our customers. Repaving after the pipeline projects on Martin Lakeshore and Lakeport Boulevard are planned. We also have those ADA upgrades to the Silvera Community Center, which is funded by grant money, as well as a new well, some SCADA upgrades, and sodium hypochlorite upgrade project. So a lot of big things happening in the city. Going back to general fund, you'll see that even after a small usage of fund balance to support the current fiscal year's budget, general fund is left with a healthy reserve of over $6 million. The goal would ultimately be to avoid a reliance on fund balance in the future, which of course would require the location of a new revenue source or considering altering or reducing the services that are being provided. Taking a look at general fund's current fund balance detail, it is projected to be at about 86% of the annual budgeted expenses, which is only slightly lower than the 91% of last fiscal year. This is due in part to the progress of some of the city's large projects that have been going on and carrying over several years. This remains to be a healthy safety net for the city if needed for one-time or temporary solutions to future budgetary issues should they arise. Taking a look at the revenue in general fund, it's of course clear to see our largest revenue source continues to be taxes. And as I mentioned, that is primarily sales tax. Taking a look at our expenditures, I'm sure it's no surprise that salaries and benefits are among the largest components there, followed by our operations, debt service, and those large capital projects that are going on. As you can see, general fund revenues have been steadily consistent for the last 5 years, which is a good thing, generally speaking. We definitely wouldn't want to see those declining in any way. However, this can become problematic when costs are continuing to increase and revenues have plateaued, failing to keep up with that increase in costs. One of those ever-increasing costs is, of course, the CalPERS unfunded accrued liability, or the UAL, that is projected to increase significantly over the next 4 years before it steadies for several years. But we don't expect to see any declines in those costs until about a decade from now. So we may be in for some interesting years here at the city.
And Danielle,
managing
if I
to keep
can
up with
interrupt there real quick. I mean, I think it is important to note that, as this chart shows, this year was the first year where we're experiencing kind of one of the larger blips in that area. So our unfunded liability payments are nearly double compared to what they were last year, and they're expected to double again over the next 5 years. I think it's critical to note, if you go back a couple slides there, you see in the reserves, it shows that we do have this pension and OPEB reserve. I think it's critical to note that we're not planning on touching that this year, which I think was really impressive that we didn't have to get into that piece. So that's a tool that still remains at our disposal for a later date as those costs continue to rise. But at the same time, I think it was very important that we do our best not to dip into that reserve until it's actually, really necessary. And I think that was a really big achievement that we were able to put this budget together for you without having to take that route of going into those reserves.
Thank you. Furthering our look at the cost analysis, we can see that salaries and benefits being the largest component of expenditures, we can only anticipate a steady increase in those costs over the next several years to keep up with the trends of other cost of living and other economic factors there. Additionally, insurance premiums and deductibles have continued to increase. In total, our budget for insurance costs actually increased 16% just from last year. So that'll be another thing that we'll continue to keep our eye on as we go. So this is a lovely graph here that was based on some pre-pandemic projections, which would show a steady increase of revenue, keeping up with the increases in operating expenditures. Of course, this would be the ideal fiscal condition that we would like to see, as this would result in a steady increase to those reserves instead of having to dip into them. Unfortunately, that's just not the reality that we live in today's world. With revenues remaining at a relatively stagnant level and those costs continuing to increase, we may be faced with the need to begin utilizing reserves in the future. And as Kevin mentioned, we're fortunate to have that OPEB reserve currently set aside that we can hopefully stay away from as long as possible until we absolutely need that. We will be continuing to monitor revenues, and we will adjust expenditures wherever possible to try to mitigate this reality. Double impact of inflation has created a complicated fiscal situation. There's no easy or even single solution. Primarily, we would be looking to increase revenues or decrease costs in order to avoid having to rely on those reserves over the years. The focus, of course, would be on the revenue side, as we would like to avoid service reductions whenever possible, but there is no magic solution, unfortunately. It takes time, and sales tax, which we are highly dependent on, is extremely volatile. We'll continue to watch those closely in the coming years to ensure that we are receiving as much as possible there. The economic environment will inevitably change. We can only hope that that will be for the better, since on the macro level, we have very little control over that revenue stream that comes our way. If we do experience additional declines in the short term, it will almost certainly result in a need to reduce services. We will continue to monitor all of these factors closely, and I am dedicated to maintaining the financial integrity of the city. And that is all for the slides. Are there any questions at this time?
Thank you, Danielle.
Have we heard anything about the 6.1 or whatever we have to meet to keep from adding to the unfunded accrued liability, and how the performance was and how that might affect? I know it takes a couple years to be integrated, but in the latest year, did we meet or did we fail to meet the 6% or whatever it is that the unfunded accrued liability number of our investments has to meet? Otherwise, it goes up automatically.
To look at that slide to see what the most current number they posted, that's from 2023. I believe 2024 was, I don't know, Daniel, if you know the the number off the top of your head, but I believe it was right in that range of where they were expecting it to be. I don't think there's
So there's not going to be an addition nor an improvement.
not at this time. I think the scary part that we've kind of been hearing preached at a number of the different pieces is that the CalPERS board does a 5-year review, and we're coming into that where they're going to analyze whether or not that 6.1 number is adequate for the fund. So it is possible that they could be considering either lowering that discount rate or looking at some other pieces. And so that's where we've been kind of watching to see, okay, if they, where are they going to put that bar at to continue to make sure that fund is remains strong. What we know is that usually comes at our cost especially if they end up lowering that discount rate. So I mean, that's there. We haven't heard anything on what way they're trending or not, other than to know that, that is always kind of a tenuous time when they're doing that review piece.
Thank you.
Other questions for council?
I'll
Okay.
just reiterate again, I mean, this was not an easy position for Danielle to come into to put this together. I do appreciate, all my department heads for being able to assist, as Danielle said, trying to learn kind of, it's one thing when you're looking at a budget code, okay, it says this, but what does that really mean? And, it's been, our team aspect really comes into play. There was nobody looking to leverage that information over, but really trying to get to an actual understanding where these pieces are and how all these pieces fit together. And I think, as Daniel said, that this is likely to be a year where especially at mid-year and maybe at the quarters, we might have a little bit more activity, recommending some budget adjustments through that piece to account for that. We're also continuing to watch what Marshalls and Tractor Supply do. It was kind of difficult to project out where those are at with just one quarter to judge from. I'll also note that we've seen some strong growth in other areas too that were not expected, especially our local restaurants. Kind of using the term local as opposed to some of the larger franchise pieces there have been doing really well. So it'll be interesting to see if that trend continues there. On the flip side, on the negative side, we're still waiting to see what the actual impact of the new tribal fueling station there on the Big Valley Rancheria is going to do. Just as a piece of it, 20% of our overall sales tax revenues do come through fuel sales. And I think just visually, we've noted that there has certainly been a reduction in that. So we'll see that play out in the next quarters as well. So in addition to Danielle's familiarity, that revenue side, especially since we're so uber dependent on sales tax, is in flux. So we'll be bringing those numbers. And if there's any changes that we need to be making and recommended to council, we'll be doing at that time as well.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the public for comment. Come on up.
Thank you.
And I will echo what he says. It was very easy to digest, and your delivery was very on point.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Anyone else in the room have a comment or question? Anyone online, Mel?
No hands raised online.
All right, thank you. So we'll bring it back to council for any comments or discussion.
I just have a question for Kelly. When you look at the rule of 72 and every year it seems like insurance 15, 16, 17%. I mean, these are numbers that means that insurance will double, like every 4.5 years. I mean, that just seems, if we did that with anything else in the world, with milk or gasoline or anything, it would be insane. And yet this never seems to stop. It's just insanity. I mean, what is driving that?
There's several things driving it. There's the increased costs and everything. So when medical bills go up, your workers' comp is going to go up, your, you know, liability claims of someone injured on a sidewalk is going to be higher. So, and then there's also a political climate where, and where they're just giving out large verdicts on, various lawsuits and claims. Certainly in the property market, the natural disasters that are happening are out of everybody's control, and you're seeing that in your own homeowner's insurance. You're definitely seeing that in the public. So it's kind of like a perfect storm of a lot of factors that are playing into the various insurance types that we have.
And the
So
verdicts as well that
The
keep coming
verdicts.
out of some of these,
Yeah.
liability suits are astronomically.
Yeah, and there's a new thing too where there's financing now. So if you attorneys are receiving financing, so you can make payments on your claim basically. So you kind of take out a loan to finance your lawsuit. And so it's giving people who maybe wouldn't normally sue, they would favor a quick settlement to going all the way with their, to try to get the big bucks on their claim. So that's another thing that's adding. So it really, really is coming from a lot of places. One thing that Sarah is working very hard to do for us is get new members into the pool, spread that risk out over more agencies. We have now a sub pool of, I'm not even sure how many fire agencies who are very low risk on liability side. So they are actively working to grow the pool and hopefully spread the risk around a little bit. So.
Other comments or discussion?
My comment goes to Danielle, and good job on this budget. I mean, to see, I knew that it was always tight. I mean, you coming in so late in the game, but seeing the schedule where it's normally started in February, to get a budget before us in this time frame that you've had is just congratulations to you and all the department heads for getting this before us. So way to go. No questions. That was my only comment. Good job.
Well, I just wanted to ditto that. Truly, you just came in and you did a marvelous job. You presented it like it was just smooth and it hadn't been an issue. You made it look all put together and well done. And just think, it's never going to be harder than this, right?
Next year is going to be great.
Hey, good job.
Madam
All right.
Mayor.
Yeah.
Great job, Danielle. We're clearly lucky to have you. And to City Manager, great message at the beginning. I've said it before, but if anyone's curious what's going on in the city and what are they actually doing over there, if you pull up the budget and look at the City Manager message, it is all right there, very clearly written and pretty exciting because for a little tiny city, there's a lot going on. Great job, everyone.
Okay, so do we need any action on this item?
No,
So this was information only. If we're done with questions, if we could have Mel pull the last slide back up. Sorry, there was a surprise slide at the end. That is the position summary, and I'll just turn that over to Kelly to discuss that portion.
So the position summary, really quick, we just typically will highlight this at the budget workshop because obviously salaries and benefits are the biggest piece of the pie that we're discussing. This year, the positions are fairly stable. We have a staffing structure that is not changing. We have a net loss of a half of a position, which was reflective of a short-term overstaffing we had while we were in transition due to a retirement. The other couple of changes are that we're looking at 2 internal promotions just to better reflect current responsibilities and leadership contributions of existing employees. So we're looking at moving an associate planner to planning services manager as this person's role has expanded. And the same with movement of a parks lead worker to a parks maintenance foreman for the same reasons. Neither of those promotions require changes to the classification system. It's just merely swapping one position for another. And all of those associated costs have been included in the budget. Additionally, we have an assistant city manager / finance director, which will now be replaced by standalone finance director position. And these adjustments support several of the council's strategic priorities, including good governance, capital infrastructure, sustainable neighborhood development by promoting internal talent and maintaining efficient service delivery. But again, the net effect is the loss of a half of a position. So it's relatively stable this year. So.
Great. Questions or comments from council on that? Members of the public? Yes.
Good evening. I'm Fred Christensen. I'm one of your planning commissioners, and Victor Fernandez is doing a wonderful job. The Planning Commission is alive and well, much to his credit. And I can't obviously speak for my fellow commissioners, but Victor is doing a good job. He deserves to be recognized for that job. He is thorough, he is professional. We even had applicants come to us and say, thank you for Victor's help on one of their issues. So please consider his promotion. As I was going through our agenda, it goes something like associate planner, and I'm going, associate to who? Victor's the planner, and he's the guy that does the good job. So that's why I sat here all day to ask you to really consider Victor's promotion. He's a good part of this good city, and he does a really good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We like
you.
him too.
Yeah.
Thank you for making the time to recognize his work. That's very thoughtful.
Indeed. Any other comments from members of the public here today in the room? How about online, Mel?
No hands raised online.
Okay, so we bring it back. This looks like a no action item as well, but thank you for the information.
I believe it is an action
No,
item.
I
No?
don't think there's an action. So
I
what you'll,
thought the budget was an action, not this one.
so yeah, what you have here, this is the budget workshop. We will be bringing it back for formal adoption at your special meeting on June 30th. And then so that we have an operating budget, prior to the end of the fiscal year. So this is just the conclusion of the workshop piece. And, as Danielle noted, she'll be putting together that full budget book, and we'll have that together for the budget adoption hearing which will be a special meeting, Monday, June 30th.
Okay.
But you did approve the cancellation notice, so for the regular meeting of July 1st. So that will be in lieu of that
Okay.
one.
So we do have a suggested motion, and we kind of slid over into the position statement, but there is a suggested motion on the budget workshop. Imagine it'd be a good idea to,
I'll go ahead and move to receive the fiscal year 25-26 budget workshop presentation and direct staff to incorporate any input for the final budget adoption at the special meeting scheduled for June 30th, 2025.
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. And then confirming, it looks like a no action on the position report.
Well, the formal action will be taken with the budget.
Yeah, it'll be
adoption,
included in the budget document for your.
Gotcha.
as
Thank
well
you.
as a discussion on the GAN limit, which is always a fun one. Someday I will bring you a GAN limit problem where our revenues exceed our expenditure authority. It's just
Don't
not-
say that.
You promise?
Someday,
Don't say
someday.
that.
That's my goal.
You should live so long.
That's his goal.
All right, so that looks like it brings us to City Council Communications. And we'll start with Community Development Director Joey Henowitz.
Nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. Chief of Police Dale Stobie.
Yeah, I just want to report out that on Monday, behavioral health clinical specialist Bonnie O'Donnell from Lake County Behavioral Health began working out of our department, co-responding with officers to calls involving potential crises. We're moving forward with that program. She's making connections and relationships within the department and starting to make those outside of the department as well. And we look forward to moving that program along.
Awesome.
Can I actually take it back? I do have something to mention.
Take it back. I take it back. Sure.
Yeah.
Joey, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that because we're not going to be having a council meeting until I believe the middle of July, or we have the special meeting.
Well, the special meeting on June 30th.
Oh, well, I can save it for then. I'll wait till the special meeting.
Oh, you can't leave us hanging like that now.
So you all know, it's not like it's a surprise, but I did want to mention that we have been working diligently on final closing documents for the Parkside Apartments project, and we do expect that to break ground probably after the 4th of July holiday. So I just wanted to make sure that we made that announcement, that they will be breaking ground. We will put out a press release and some other information in regards to the project and who you might be able to contact if you have any questions. But that project will be breaking ground pretty soon here, subsequent to probably the 4th of July holiday, that week after that. And so it's an exciting time for us in Lakeport here.
Thank you. Okay, Utilities Director Paul Harris. Thank you. Administrative Services Director Kelly Buendia.
No report.
All right. Finance Director Danielle Dizon.
Nothing further to report.
Thank you. Public Works Director Ron Ladd.
Thank you, Mayor Costa. I have nothing to report.
All right. And Mel, the GIS dude. That's his chosen title. So we go with it.
Nothing to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Assistant City Council Mackenzie Anderson.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Kevin Ingram.
Just once again, a quick reminder that we will be canceling the regular meeting of July 1st, and in lieu, we'll be holding a special meeting on the Monday before June 30th for the primary purpose of adopting the budget.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. regular time. Yes.
All right. Councilmember Matina
No report.
and Pro Tem Disney.
Just everybody's noticed the South Main paving. We've already talked about it tonight, but I was really excited to see it done and done so quickly. So that was really exciting. Another on a personal note is we're breaking ground on our new development just north Lakeport there. We're trying to coordinate with the chamber to do a groundbreaking ceremony, and city staff has been very involved with just navigating approvals and everything. So the chamber will be reaching out for a groundbreaking ceremony. Excuse me. The chamber also said, oh, maybe we could get the city council to come too. So you guys might be getting a call to attend as well. And that's it for my report.
Very cool. Thank you. Councilmember Parlett.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Price.
Nothing really exciting to report, nothing groundbreaking, pun intended. We're getting towards the tail end of the application window for 4th of July for Lakeport Main Street Association. If you wanted to be a vendor, you're welcome to do your application for a little bit longer before they close that down. We as in the city is in communications with PEG TV to have them come out again and look and see what they can do to get us up to par and able to feed to PEG TV. And then update on the T-Mobile Hometown Grant. I have received 3 letters of support, and I'm working with Sam Houston to, he's putting together some testimonial pieces and some other still photos from projects and activities and events that have been at the community center and putting that all together for a video. And that'll go along with our grant package. The deadline on that is on the 30th, and I plan on having that completed beforehand. So that's that.
Good work.
Yeah,
All right.
that's all I have.
And then for me, I think it's just I was invited to go out to the Volkswagen little
Shine.
to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Pep and
the-
Shine, it was
Did-
awesome.
Did you guys
I
go?
meant to say, yeah, there were
Yeah.
a lot of people. It was
It
really
was-
good.
it was
What
fun.
did you pick for Mayor's Choice?
Well, thank you for asking. So there was a lot of cool vehicles, right? And I had a lot of fun talking to the folks that looked like they had a lot of adventures in their vehicles.
Yeah.
And
of
then
miles.
it came down to, well, you got to pick one. And so there was that really beautiful red and black with the black convertible top and
Oh,
it had
yeah.
some fancy
beautiful.
wheels, which wouldn't necessarily be my style. But I kept hearing at my son, I lost him about 3 years ago, but in the back of my mind, he was like, pick the red one, Mom. Pick the red. I thought, okay, we're picking the red one. So it was very cool. But there was a lot of great it was a nice vibe. You know, people were happy to be there. And I keep hearing when people come to these events in our city and they just talk about what a wonderful place to come and have an event. So I just think it's a great thing for us to continue to,
I
you know,
should
promote,
add to that
support,
because
etc.
Ron said hello and he said to thank all of the city. Everyone was wonderful and everyone was having a blast.
Yeah, cool. So those are great things to do and glad we were able to have that one here.
Yeah, it's cool.
And I think that's it for me. We're going to now move into our closed session conference with labor negotiator. Government Code Section 54957.6, City Negotiators Administrative Services Director Buendia and Margaret Long, Employee Organization, Lakeport Police Officers Association. So we take public comment on this item now. Anyone in the room would like to comment on this? Anyone online with their hands raised? No?
No hands raised.
Okay, so after the closed session, we will come back with any information that needs to be reported out. Thank you. Hello, everyone. We are back from closed session and there is no reportable action. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.